What's up, guys? My name is Duane. I'm 37, and for most of my adult life, I suffer from an eating disorder. So my intention with this here is to shed light and information and guidance on everything that I've been through in the past 25 to 30 years of my life since starting this battle with my relationship with food, an eating disorder, and just a life of chronic illnesses that I thought were going to plague me for a really long time. As much as I want this to be as perfect as possible, it's just not going to be. It's just going to be all from the heart. It's all going to be vulnerable because it's all just a real life story. Going back to when I was 12 years old, losing my parents, to their divorce really put a strain on me as a child, and a lot of kids don't realize that growing up that certain situations in life can do that to you. But I think most of us, looking back as we get older in life, we realize that that's a lot of where it all started. My parents separating led to a lot of inner relation issues with myself, which led to myself turning to food and to coping mechanisms as a child. And for kids, we're just children. We don't have anything else to cope with except for what makes us happy. And a lot of times that's either playtime with ourselves, our friends, or food. And that was a big thing for me, was food. At 12 years old, I put on over 30 pounds during one summer visiting my grandparents. And that was the beginning of the end for me as I saw it. It led to many issues growing up of mockery, bullying, self-esteem issues, self-respect issues, no self-confidence, everything that pretty much I think everybody goes through at some point in their life when they battle a severe eating disorder of this type. Whether you just don't want to eat, whether you overeat, whether you comfort eat, whichever route it might be, so many people experience it and battle it. And astoundingly, actually, 10% of Americans experience an eating disorder of some type in their life, which is just astounding. 10% of Americans. And even worse, guys, they're saying 45 to 50% of males account for the binge eating disorders out there. And that was me. It never stopped. Growing up, I struggled with making friends. I struggled with relationships. I struggled with keeping myself active enough to stay in shape, which then I played football my whole life growing up, but it led to me not feeling comfortable being in the place that I enjoy being now most of my adult life, at the weight room. This is where most of the work goes in for personal development, inner development, but also keeping yourself healthy and in shape. It's not taught enough as kids, it's not shown enough as kids, and it's not brought to attention enough, in my opinion, from family structure or church or school. But this is where a lot of this has come to for most of us, is building a platform to share our story with the rest of the world for the problems and the struggles and the issues that we've gone through, to help others overcome these problems and struggles and issues, to become better people and to help educate those around us so that more of us don't continue to battle these problems and face these adversities growing up.
Oh, shit.
So as I got older, I only found that it was even harder for me to go back and fix and find the root causes and problems for where my eating disorders originally began. I played football my entire life. I was heavily gifted, heavily athletic. I just had no work ethic to go with it. That caused a serious problem for a kid who really liked to eat a lot of food and didn't like to eat the right amounts of food. You put anything in front of me and I was willing to eat it. I wanted to have eating contests with people. I was just obsessed with food. I thought that eating a bag of chips and drinking, a case of soda on the weekend, watching football and baseball was a life. I watched my dad do it. I watched people around me do it. I watched people that I loved do it all the time. And I believed and just thought that that was exactly what I wanted to do and how I needed to live my life. So while I was an athlete growing up, playing football and baseball and basketball and excelling and always wanting to be outdoors and playing sports, I wasn't always outdoors and being active and doing all of that because of my overweight issues and because of my eating disorder. It kept me grounded. It kept me inside. It kept me secluded and isolated away from everybody else. I was embarrassed, ashamed. I didn't like the way that my body looked. I didn't like the way my body felt. So I hid. I hid from everybody and everything. I didn't have many friends growing up. And what I soon started to find out was everything I was shoving down my hole was then soon going to lead to all of my anger problems, all of my emotional chemical imbalances inside of my body, and eventually was going to lead to some really bad relationship turns and some money issues and some interpersonal relationship problems that I just was not going to be able to fix. So as I continue to fast forward through the earlier stages of my life and the backstory of where this eating disorder began, I'm now out on my own, living away from my family, away from my parents. I'm going through college. I'm learning how to live on my own, and things are getting even worse. A lot of us realize that when we go to college, we go to school, being an adult is not easy. Being an adult is not cheap. It's very expensive. It's difficult, and how we take care of ourselves growing up is ultimately going to lead how we take care of ourselves on our own when we're older. As I continue to play football throughout my early adult life and into my early 20s, I started to suffer several concussions. This would lead to severe CTE issues, anger issues, stuttering problems, speech problems, memory problems, everything you guys could imagine. And with all of that, then turned to me looking for more coping mechanisms, but this time as an adult, in which food wasn't just going to be the answer. It was then alcohol and weed. And for many adults, that's the easiest way to cope with everything in life. Is your friends are drinking, your family's drinking, maybe your friends are smoking, maybe your friends are doing other drugs. And when you are going through the muck of your life and you don't know which way to turn to, and you don't have God in your life, that is usually the direction that you turn to cope with anything that you have, especially with eating disorders. That was real. That was real. After years and years and years of suffering and battling, and just not knowing which way to go, who to turn to, where to go, how to fix this, I started really turning to the only place I could think of. And about 7 or 8 years ago was the first time I really turned to God. I had nowhere else to run to. I had no friends. I had no family. Guys, when you allow yourselves to run down the rabbit hole of an eating disorder, and you allow it to disassociate you from everything and everybody in your life, and you allow it to destroy your self-esteem and your self-confidence and everything that you've tried to build internally with yourself, it is an absolute destruction of disaster, and it can completely tear you apart. And I believe it's a big reason why a lot of men turn to the ultimate external sacrifice, in which is just the worst way to go. But again, like I said, 45 to 55% of men are the leading numbers statistically for binge eating disorders out there. And I was one of them until just recently. One thing to keep in mind, and something that's very important as you continue to see my content and hear my story and see my journey as it unfolds, is to understand that I haven't always been like this. I haven't always been the kind of man that I am, the person I am, and I certainly have not looked the way that I do for most of my life, and especially my adult life. Currently, I am at my healthiest and happiest version of myself. I'd actually like to put on more weight, but sitting roughly at about 197 pounds, roughly 12% body fat, coming from 10 years ago of being 300 pounds and over 40% body fat, and never touching a weight room in my entire life. Investing in yourself and investing in your optimal health and your long-term health is the best option you can possibly do. For me personally, it took hiring multiple coaches. I first reached out to a nutrition coach 4 or 5 years ago, and it didn't work for me. I then reached out to personal trainers. Some of them worked and some of them didn't. I then reached out to other personal trainers, and some of them worked and some of them didn't. And then I reached out to another coach in which it didn't work, and that's when I finally turned to bodybuilding. Why did I turn to bodybuilding? 1, because I didn't have any muscle. 2, because I thought I wanted to be big muscle. And 3, I knew that lifestyle and that coordination of eating and how specific and dialed in their lifestyle was going to be what I needed in order to get myself over the hump of this eating disorder. Even during my bodybuilding journey for the last 2 years, I have found myself struggling because of the lack of consistency throughout my entire life. When you finally start putting the pieces in place that you need to, guys, it's hard. It really is. It takes the absolute most piece of discipline. It takes the absolute most piece of your control and your focus to dial yourself in and force yourself to go through the muck of finding the discipline that gets you to the happiest stage and the happiest point of your life. For most people, the ups and downs of life and the roller coasters in life is exactly where we all go wrong. It's where we all have our biggest problems. The hardship is where we lose control and we lose focus, and we just are so quick to just let all of our progress go down the drain. It's finding people connected to you. It's finding people like myself who have been through this, who have gone through it, who are passionate about helping others, about sharing information, about connecting with others in communities to help others achieve the fitness and the health and the relationship with food that they're really looking for. Guys, that's what this is truly about. So many people out there just have the worst relationship with food, and it doesn't have to be that way. I personally love food. I eat all the time, but I now have a new relationship and a new appreciation for food in which the energy that it provides, the value that it gives me internally and the value that it gives me externally is more important than just feeding the comfort because I'm sad or depressed or upset or something's not going right in my life and I need to figure out a way to balance that chemically inside. Honestly, the hardest part of this entire journey was turning it around. Even harder was figuring out how to turn it around. A lot of people believe, even I believed, that I could do this all on my own. And I'm here to tell you guys that very few of us, very few of you will ever be able to do it on your own. And that's okay. We're not meant to do things on our own. We're not meant to thrive on our own. We're not meant to be lone wolves in the world. We're not meant to figure things out on our own. Even God says, it's not up for us to figure things out. It's up for us to walk the walk and allow Him to put everything else in place. It's the same thing with nutrition. It's the same thing with your health. It's the same thing with a job. It's the same thing with personal development. It's the same thing with everything in life. We need to reach out to other people and connect with other people who have been where we want to be and are who we want to be in order for us to overcome the circumstances in our life or the problems that we're facing. Eating disorders are no different, you guys. You don't have to be ashamed if you have an eating disorder. If you struggle with depression and you're someone that turns to candy and snacks and soda and ice cream, that's half of everybody out there, you guys. Everybody out there is struggling with something. Most people just are not willing to admit it, and most people that are even willing to admit it, they're not willing to work on it or change it because of the comfort that they've already been experiencing throughout their life. That wasn't me. I felt like I wanted more, I deserved more, I was going to get more. So I started reaching out and I started finding people and I started working on myself. I started looking in the mirror and figuring out what it was I didn't like and who I wanted to become so that I could sit here in front of a camera like this talking to people, sharing my story of where I've been and what I've gone through and how I've battled to overcome this eating disorder and to be in the best place of my life mentally, emotionally, physically, to share this with you guys and to help others overcome this as well. "12 years ago, I started this fitness journey. my horrible relationship with food, my horrible relationship with myself, even more so my relationship with my son, my relationship with my parents, my relationship with my friends. Guys, food literally is the relationship builder and breaker of life. What we put in our body has so many chemicals, so many different pieces to it that are driving our internal engine for everything. It connects how our brain chemicals connect to our heart, connect to our body, connect to everything, connect to our energetic output, and what we attract, what we bring in, all of it, you guys. Food is what literally runs and drives everything inside of us. If you're not putting the right chemicals inside of your body, you're just destroying your entire chemical balance inside of you. From food dyes to processed sugars to processed fats to all of it. But that was me. I'm not talking down, I'm talking to, because that was me. Guys, it took me over 10 years to figure out and fully digest and break down and get to the root cause of my eating disorder, to understand how to have a better relationship with it. Let's go back 1 year from right now, April of 2023. I'm in the thick of a bulk. I've got my bodybuilding coach. I've got a meal plan. I know exactly what I need to eat, when I need to eat it, how I need to prep it. Everything is in line, but personal life came into play. My relationship started to fall apart a little bit. I had other problems going on in my life. My job security wasn't the greatest. And although I did have a meal plan and although I was dialed in, I still managed to put on 17 pounds in 17 days. As a competition wannabe bodybuilder, I still put on 17 pounds in 17 days, going for anything and everything because of what I was going through in life. My coach couldn't help me. My coach couldn't save me. God couldn't save me. Guys, I had to save myself. I had to look in the mirror and figure out exactly what was going on and where the root cause was coming from and why I continued to turn to food as a comfort drug. And once I finally figured out where and why that was, because of how I was raised 30 years ago, and not necessarily raised, I did it to myself. Nobody forced me to eat the food. That was the other piece of it. Understanding that we are the root cause of our own issues, and we need to then in turn find that. I had to dive back into it to figure out where all of that came from. My parents' divorce, bad relationships with friends growing up, no self-esteem, no self-confidence. But fast forward 25 years, I put myself in the gym. I found that self-confidence. Guys, I didn't lose my eating disorder until after I found 5 years worth of confidence in the mirror. Building myself to a physique that I never thought possible was how I was able to overcome my eating disorder. It doesn't have to take that extreme, but that is the only way to really truly break down your eating disorder root cause, is to go down deep inside of yourself and find out where it was that it started, why you started it, and why you're doing all of this in the first place. So guys, if you're someone out there that struggles with an eating disorder, just like I did, and honestly, just like I still do, because it's not something that ever goes away. It's something you have to continuously work on. But if you're someone out there that struggles with it, you don't have to be ashamed. You don't have to hide. You don't have to be afraid that it will never change. Guys, you just have to be willing to make small changes every single day, maybe every single week, maybe every single month over the course of time. There's a way to change all of this. Everybody can do it. If I did it, I know that you guys can do it. I know so many of you out there that'll watch this struggle the same way that I did, struggle the same way that I do, and probably and possibly don't know where to turn, how to speak up, or where to start. And that's okay. That's why I'm making these videos. That's why I'm going to continue to share this on this platform and continue to share my story to help educate and advocate people to become healthier, make better choices, better habits. Making those small shifts every single day over the course of time, compounded daily, just leads to massive results. Guys, I didn't get here overnight. You don't change your life overnight. This has been a 10 to 12 year journey for me, from going from 300 to 260 to 240, back to 260, down to 220, back to 240, down to 180. Guys, it's a roller coaster. The reason it's a roller coaster is because a lot of us just are uneducated on how to properly get to where we want to get to. It takes a little bit of time, it takes patience, it takes effort, it takes reaching out and hiring coaches, it takes getting connected with people who have been where you have not been so you can get to where you want to get to. Having an eating disorder does not have to be the end-all say-all. It doesn't. You can turn it around, you can live the life that you really want to live. Just because we go through it doesn't mean we can't grow through it. Ultimately, we write our own stories. So I invite you all to follow along as I continue to change the outcome of mine, but also persuade and convince you guys to change the outcome of yours as well.